All right, so we got Francis Ellis, comedian, senior editor at Bro Bible, and the podcast of the podcast. So, Francis, thanks for coming on.
Taylor, it's my pleasure, dude. You are a good man. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. So, before we start, people are gonna wonder, like, why am I talking to Francis Ellis, and is there any relationship, or did I just slide in your DMs? But I did. But tell the people, like, how do we know each other? Very brief, though. I know it's a very brief relationship.
Wait, how do we know each other beyond what you just said? We've been kind of DMing each other.
Well, we had I interviewed to be your producer.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, see, totally erased from your memory because the interview I think went well, but it's someone I think got a little more experience than me. Got the
Yeah. It all came down to like video editing experience. That was what we were really looking for, and but you're a good dude, man. Don't I hope you didn't let that beat yourself up too much over that.
No, because then I asked if we can just talk over coffee about. I got questions about you. And your
That's
career.
right. That's
And
right.
I thought it'd be like a 10-minute thing, and it went on for almost like an hour.
That was fun, man. It was good to see you.
Yeah, it was fun. It was good. It was definitely informative. But I guess we can go past that kind of stuff. We can talk about you, since you have a very interesting career, kind of ups and downs. But I think the downs have made your career almost better in a way.
Oh, for sure, man. Downs are always fun. You know, you can really find yourself at the bottom of the barrel.
Absolutely. So let's get into it. So you're a Harvard grad, and
Yep.
you played lacrosse. How in the world did you? First of all, before I get into like how did you cross over to like the entertainment and comedy, what was your like end goal graduating college? Like what was your career? What did you want to do?
Well, I had applied for Teach for America, and I had also wanted to try to be in the CIA. I never heard back from them,
Holy shit. I didn't know that.
but I wanted to do Teach for America. I didn't get it, so I didn't really have anything, and so I had done some stand up my senior year, and I decided to move to New York to see what that was like. And I moved to New York. I was living at my sister's apartment for a week, and I found an ad on Craigslist for a tutoring job. And I went to this agency and I got hired as a tutor. I worked at the agency for about 6 months, realized I could make a lot more money doing it on my own, and started tutoring on my own. And I was always doing stand up, and I was doing open mics and stuff. And it was that was kind of how everything developed. And I did that for a couple of years. Went to law school for a little bit when I thought I needed to get serious about my life. Dropped out after 4 days. And then it was pretty short.
Sure.
And then a couple years later, I got the Barstool job. That's kind of how things went from there.
How much did you learn from that rough process of trying to like get your life in order? You know, you're living at your sister's, you're starting this tutor thing on your own, and then you try to get into law school, but then you kind of like almost instantly know that this isn't for me. But how rough was that in the beginning?
You know, I wouldn't call it necessarily rough. I mean, your early 20s are about career exploration, and that's exactly kind of how I treated it. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but my guiding principle was like, as long as I can pay my rent, I'm not necessarily moving backwards here. All my friends were working in finance and moving up the ladder and making more and more money, and I was definitely envious of their kind of linear trajectory, but I also knew that wasn't something I could do, and it wasn't something I wanted to do. So I didn't know if comedy would work out. I didn't really know what was going on, but I was kind of doing things with my life where, I was checking off a list and being like, okay, well, I didn't like that. I didn't like this. And it was as if I was process of eliminating myself towards the things that I wanted to do.
And when you decided, when you were processing through what you wanted to do and what you not, what not, what you didn't want to do, but then you saw comedy when you were in senior year in college, and then kind of doing a little bit afterwards. Was there a point in time where you're like, oh, this is exactly what I want to do? I want to be a comedian?
Dude, I've never felt that, except that here's the thing. I always wanted to be a comedian, but I never thought it was a real thing. I didn't see any road to actually getting paid to do that. I always thought it was kind of going to be like a hobby that I would have maybe, or I didn't know if I was any good, if I was ever going to be good. And, I got this Barstool job out of the blue by winning this contest.
Yeah, Barstool Idol, right?
And I didn't know if I was going to succeed at Barstool. Uh, and I guess it was a year in when I finally started writing pretty well and figuring out my voice and tone and something that connected with the readers. And then I got confident about it. And, but it was tough, man. The fans at Barstool will really make you feel like you're not very good. And you could write the best blog that's ever been written, and then everyone says, you're the best writer on the site. And then your next blog an hour later goes against what they want you to do, and all of a sudden
They're ripping you apart.
You've been cast out, and everyone's calling for you to be fired and stuff, dancing on your grave. And it's just like, I really don't miss that. I don't miss the audience at all. It's pretty awful.
I was gonna transition right now to the process of Barstool Idol. That must have been. It looked, you handled it really well, but it looked like it was extremely stressful for those. I think it was 5 days of competing and doing weird challenges, and then also the audition. You did very different audition than everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, I did stand up in the audition, and then in the actual week itself, it was like, you didn't know what was going on. I don't even think anyone who worked there knew what was going on.
That was the first time you guys that Barstool was doing something like this. So it was, I guess, all brand new to them, and they were kind of each day kind of learning as they were going.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So, it was just another one of the many things that I think they had come up with to try to create sponsored or interesting content. And I don't know if they knew if they would ever get somebody out of it who would actually contribute to the company. But ironically, in that first runaround, that's how they got Donnie and me. And I think we both proved that we were good additions to the company. And then they did it again a couple years later, and they got the Mantis one, and then Marty Mush came out of that as well.
Right.
And I think at this point, it's like, that's probably, if they do it again, that's probably the easiest way to get hired at Barstool, even though it's pretty tough.
Right. I mean, you and Donnie killed it, because Donnie was extremely different, being the international correspondent, and you being a comedian, but also putting music, using the piano or whatever into your act. But also you were, you're a good-looking guy. You're confident, and it's like a lot different from what I think they've had in the past. Even with your background being a Harvard graduate, you came up as a wealthy guy, and you're very intelligent. I think it's almost like a polar opposite to like majority of the workers there.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Nothing. That's probably true. I don't know where, like, most of the other guys, how you could kind of characterize the other people, but I was good friends with a lot of those guys. I still am. I still like talking to those guys. So
now, during your process there, you did the variety show. You had your own special. Is the variety show something and also you did Barstool Breakfast with Willie and JSB, and then she left and had Large come on. with the let's start with the radio show. I thought it was great, and the very first time you were on the air, your first guest was Mike Francesa, and
Oh yeah.
I was like, "Holy crap! This is bigger than I actually think it's going to be." I'm sure that was almost maybe the same thing as you thought.
Yeah, well, JSB had all these great contacts, and she kind of lined up all these guests for our first week, and it was pretty wild. Looking back, we probably should have spaced some of those out a little bit more. But
Almost every day, it was like a bigger and bigger guest. It seemed like.
yeah, we had Arlo White, who was this fantastic announcer in English soccer, and yeah, I mean, you know, our radio show took a long time to get, I think, to its best version. But then by the time we finally had, when it was me, Large, and Willie, and Large and I would alternate days, and then we would all do Friday together, I think that was the best version of the show, because I did it every day for, a year and a half or something, and it was so exhausting.
Well, because you were getting up, it was starting at what, 6, and you're getting
Yeah,
up.
we would get up. I'd get up at 5:30 in the morning, and then I'd have to work the rest of the day at Barstool, and I was so fried that the rest of my work started to kind of suck, and then I was doing stand up at night, and I had a hard time kind of like keeping it together. So finally, that's when I asked Large if he would come in and help, and then we found a good balance. And just having 2 days off per week was enough to like keep me sort of keep my energy up and let me recharge a little throughout the week.
Is radio something you would do again in the future if you
Oh,
were
absolutely. Radio is super fun, you
especially
can.
with the range you guys had. You guys had full reign to talk about whatever you wanted, and you had all these different concepts and ideas that I think would work really well if you can do it again.
Yeah, Sirius is a great company. I liked working with them. I loved the radio show, and I would definitely do that again, given the opportunity, for sure.
Now, the variety show really, I think it really showed your true talent, because it was not only the acting and being very funny, but it was the writing as well. That's almost, in a way, it was like an SNL type thing, being in that kind of when it comes to the writing aspect, I think.
Yeah, Dave had told me I had done a couple of sketches. Oh, I had started out with all these things. I was doing these things called "This Is Barstool," and that was when I first started there, and they were spoofs of the This Is Sports Center commercials, and I was just coming up with random little goofy ideas to shoot using the Barstool personalities, and I don't know, we must have done like 9 or 10 of them, and then I kind of ran out of ideas, but Dave liked those. We did the this great one with the baseball player.
It was George Brett.
George Brett, yeah,
Right, that was
I
hilarious.
wrote with Big Cat, uh, and that one was so good that Dave told me he wanted me to do a show based on this, kind of an SNL based sketch show, and I had taken some sketch writing classes at Upright Citizens Brigade, and I'd done some sketch acting and stuff, but I certainly wasn't equipped to run and produce a whole sketch show. So we did the first season. I think it was okay. I mean, the thing about sketch comedy is that every show that does sketch comedy, you're shooting for like a 20% hit rate.
Right.
Meaning, Key and Peele, which is one of the top 3 or 4 most successful sketch comedy shows of all time. If you ever watched the full episodes of Key and Peele on Comedy Central, there'd be like one great sketch and then 3 that were somewhat forgettable. And then they became so famous because they would put their sketches on YouTube, and then like a handful went viral as hell.
That's
And
all you need.
they're like, these guys are 2 of the best guys doing it. what made Chappelle's show so spectacular was that every sketch on Chappelle's show was funny. And no one has ever been able to replicate that level of consistency. I mean, it was such an aberration in how good it was across the board. And that's what made it, the most paid for, most watched show on TV or whatever. So aside from that, though, like SNL, not every, they have if a full episode of SNL, like maybe it'll have one or two good sketches, and then the rest will be like all those sketches that they air after the first musical performance are tend to be pretty weak.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So it's really hard. It's really hard to do good sketch and make it kind of good across the board. I do like that one show on Netflix with the guy who used to be on SNL. I'm sorry, I don't even know what it's called, but Nate Robinson or something. Sam Robinson.
Craig Robinson.
No, hold on, I'll look it up.
I don't know, because I feel like that thing. I think you would be
Tim Robinson.
Tim Robbins. Oh, I think I know. Yeah, I think I know you're talking about.
I Think You Should Leave is the name of the show. That was funny. That was really. I've seen
11 episodes of that actually. I think that's where like the most talent comes from when it comes to like the writing and comedy, because it's the creativity in it. Because like is it Neil Brennan, right, and Chappelle, right, and they were just absolute geniuses with it, and it made the show an all-time classic. And I feel like I would absolutely watch that again if it came back. Like,
yeah,
without a doubt.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's timeless. Yeah,
absolutely. And then you had the stand-up special, and then I think the biggest thing that got you, I guess, social media-wise, that got you huge was the Game of Thrones songs.
Oh yeah, the Game of Thrones songs. Yeah,
they were hilarious, but they were so big that all these media outlets were picking them up and on their social media. And I blew up.
Yeah, they got passed around a little bit. I mean, there was such an example of not knowing what the internet is going to enjoy or flock to. I mean, I'm just sitting at my piano and I'm just making shit up as I go along. Right. Not rhyme. It doesn't rhyme. It's not pre-written. It's just me yelling my predictions for what I thought would happen that night.
Oh, so they were not. You didn't write them beforehand. They were just off the dome.
No, yeah, those are. If you go back and listen, the lyrics are not exactly good.
Right.
It's not like, but I think it was what a lot of people were thinking, and also, I think the fact that everyone was talking about how much they hated the season, and then I would voice some of my complaints about that as well in the songs.
A lot of people drew to it. Exactly.
It was a kind of a way to shout frustration, and also, to capitalize on the show being in its final season and being so popular. And they would, that it was but it was one of those things. It was classic. It was like I got so many messages from people being like, dude, fuck you. Why are you making these? You're ruining my life. And especially when Barstool would post them on the main Instagram account, which, I didn't ask them to do that. Or I think like after the first one, they took it, posted it, and then I would just send it over there if they wanted it. But I didn't expect them to post it, and they would post them all the time. And they would do lots of views, and, I'm sure a lot of people liked them, and then there a lot of people wouldn't like them. And it's like, why are you mad about it?
How hard was it for you to try and win over the Stoolies? And how long did it take for you to like realize that this would be a lot harder than I thought? And I think I'm usually a hard critic. I'll if I really don't like it, I'm not gonna go out of my way and like ruin your day by saying you.
Well, it's just like I've gone to. It's the same thing about the type of person that goes to a restaurant and doesn't like the food or doesn't like the service, and their way of dealing with that is to go on Yelp and review it.
Agree.
Like, I've eaten a lot of bad meals in my life, I've never signed up for a Yelp account
Right.
so that I could leave my opinion. I
No
think
one cares.
there's a real like desperate entitlement to
Absolutely.
thinking that your paragraph or your comment about the work that someone else is doing deserves to be heard. You know what
It's
I mean?
like, yeah, no, it's like when they do it, it's like, all right, I did my part for the day. Like I
Yeah,
did my job.
and I totally appreciate people's and respect people's right to contribute and like be part of it, and that's fine. um it's just not who I am, and so
Understand.
I could never relate to that level of anger and frustration over something that was just trying to be funny.
Right.
And hey, I think a lot of people like the problem was a lot of people would see that you were putting your work up on this place and they just automatically assumed like that you therefore thought it was really good. And it's like, no, a lot of the stuff I did not think was good. I did not think it was funny. I just had to do it because it was my job.
Right.
Like I had a fucking quota I had to put out. And when you're working at any job, not everything you put out is great. you know uh and I just worked on a stand-up bit about getting fired from Barstool, and
That
I think
clip was hilarious on your
yeah, someone DM'd me a screenshot of the Barstool Reddit and their thoughts on it, and they were all so angry, and they were like, Francis is doubling down. He thinks he's the funniest person alive. It's like, no, I don't. I don't think I'm funny. I'm trying, but I'm hoping that 6 years from now, if I continue to do stand up and get up every night, I'll keep getting better, and maybe I'll get some cool work and cool jobs. But
right.
right now, I'm in the minor leagues. I'm just grinding it out and trying to make it happen, and I don't think I'm that funny. I'm hoping to get funnier, but it's a long game. That's my thought process on this stuff.
Yeah, I've listened to more podcasts with comedians like the Whiskey Ginger, which is Andrew Santino, or
Yeah,
History Hyenas with Chrissy D and Giannis Pappas, and they talk
yeah,
about how the road. I find it so interesting, the road for a comedian, how long it takes for them to get that 5 or 10 minutes on Fallon, or getting their time on the road and bombing all the time and just sitting in the bomb and learning from it. And then there's like that one or two in a row when you're on stage and you absolutely murder it. I find it so interesting. And I find that comedians have such a harder road than like actors do.
yeah. Maybe. I mean, I think I think the difference is that in acting, it's like it's a little bit like trying to win the lottery,
Right.
and you buy a ticket and it's either a winner or it's not. 99.9% of the time it's not. And so, whereas so it's pretty black or white. Like you either get the job or you don't. Whereas in stand up, it's a little easy. You get better feedback at least. It's
Yeah,
not,
when someone's
you're
booing,
not like,
someone's
yeah, you're
laughing
not
at you.
left guessing if it was because of your look or the way that you delivered the lines, but you also are given negative feedback that can be a lot more crushing, based on a crowd not laughing or a heckler or whatever it may be. So that's the flip side. That's why comedians tend to be a lot darker than actors, I think.
Right. The comedians always have some sort of mental or physical issue in their life, and that I think makes them more of a better performer in a way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
We're going to your comedian and podcast career in a second, but the last thing I'll talk about Barstool is the moment when it just kind of just fell apart where you have this blog, you're reporting on it like honestly anybody else would, but it just didn't really go your way. And just tell me how it happened and it unfolded so fast, but how have you been able to like overcome it once it happened to you?
Yeah, I mean, it was just another blog in the thousands of blogs that I wrote there, and frankly, I guess I just kind of missed some of the details, or I didn't read it that closely. I wasn't thinking that much about it. Everything I wrote in the blog was not that. There was nothing like that funny, and it wasn't a blog. I don't even think I was going to tweet the blog. You know what I mean? That was like a pretty good indicator of when we were proud of the work that we had done, was like we would tweet the link to the blog. And that was a blog I was just like, oh, I got to show that I showed up to work today. I got to get a couple blogs out, and nobody was touching that story, and it didn't register with me why. And because it was like a pretty viral story.
Real serious.
Well, yeah, but it was like, she was a sugar daddy. I thought she was like on a date with a guy or something. I thought she was
Right.
with a sugar daddy, and I was like, this is great, and then I wrote this blog, and I was like, let's hope that when she gets back from her date, she'll be doing a reunion press tour and everything's good and yada yada. And I think I even wrote something like, first and foremost, if she's not doing well, like let's hope she's fine or whatever.
Right. Clarified a little bit.
And then she was found murdered, and everyone thought I was a huge dick, and I got fired for it. Supposedly, I have no idea. People have told me or since that, I guess, like Dave went on radio or something and said it had more to do with, I don't know, me not dressing up for the Dunkin' Donut Awards or something. And I don't know. I kind of just have to take them at face value for what they said, which was that they fired me because they didn't feel like they had any other options. But if I'm honest, I don't think it was like a great fit.
Really? You really think it was the best fit for you personally?
I didn't really have a whole lot more to offer. I don't, like I didn't have much more to do there. I was so tired of the fans, and I liked my radio show. I thought that was fun, but it was moving. The company was becoming a gambling company, and the whole site was shifting over to like gambling content and sports, and I wasn't big on either of those things, and I just felt like I didn't know if there was a place for me to continue to grow or
Right.
or anything there. So when they fired me, I mean, there was definitely a part of me that was like kind of relieved.
Well, it almost seems like it's now. It of course it sucked. No one likes getting fired.
No, but it helped me.
And exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
It's benefiting you now because you have a podcast. Oops, the podcast talks about people and their mistakes and how do you kind of challenge that and move on from it and kind of make it better for yourself. And now you're using it in your act, which people like. And it's almost like a way where if you're like in middle school and someone's bullying you and calling you a name, you then almost kind of absorb the nickname in a sense, and then everyone stops like making fun of you.
Yeah, you own it. Yeah, you
right.
B-rabbit it from 8 Mile.
Right.
Exactly. It was pretty scary because I thought I was going to be canceled, from all of it, but nobody cared 2 days later. And that was
Epstein's kind of saved your ass in a way.
Yeah, I make a joke about that, but more, if it hadn't been him, it would have been somebody. It's just like these people who make everyone angry. The Daily Beast writer, and this guy who sensationalized the headline and said I had slut shamed a murdered girl. Like, there was no slut shaming whatsoever on there. I
Right.
didn't know she was murdered. I mean, he's just writing it for himself. And he didn't, like, nope, there's never been any follow-up. It's not as if anyone's been like writing like, oh, can't, Barstool Sports former writer Francis Ellis is now making jokes. Nobody cares anymore. Nobody cares about me.
In actuality, the story in the time was sort of important, but then like a week later, it was like that big.
I don't even think it was important in the moment. Like, nobody gave a shit. I wrote a blog that was in poor taste about a murdered girl. It's like, whoops.
Right.
I was sorry. I was sorry to the family for sure, but like, I don't think they fucking read my blog.
I don't think they had more important things to deal with,
And not only that, but it's a blog.
I agree.
Like, my work wasn't that important. I was always humble enough to know that what I was doing was not important. I wasn't some star. I wasn't some, like, I said to Tommy Smokes, I remember like a week before I got fired, I said to him, I was like, dude, I don't know why I said this, but I said, if I got fired tomorrow, if Barstool were a publicly traded company, it wouldn't move the stock an inch. Like, nobody would care. Nobody would miss me. The only people that mattered were Dave, Big Cat, PFT, and the Call Her Daddy girls, and maybe Kevin. And yeah, like everybody else at that company was replaceable. Everybody.
Now to when the day had happened, and then the funny thing is, I think it's hilarious that you went on vacation in France
Oh yeah.
with your girlfriend, and then like you had to meet. I remember hearing that you had to meet her parents, and this was like,
Yeah.
what are the odds that you're meeting her parents for the first time and like telling them like, yep, I'm just another one of the unemployed human on this planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
That must, I mean, and that's like a perfect story. I mean, I know you do it, but like to do it on your stand up, because that's hilarious.
Yeah. No, it was a, it was so crazy to try to like talk to them right after this had happened. I was so dazed
Right.
by it all. And especially as like all these news outlets, I couldn't believe that like the Washington Post wrote about it. I couldn't believe that that was newsworthy to them.
Just one day of news that just caught their eye.
I guess so. So they they didn't care. Like, everyone was like, yeah, you made a mistake. I didn't hurt. They were like, you didn't hurt anybody.
Right.
I didn't need to anyone. I didn't like bully anyone. I didn't, whatever. I wasn't racist, or I didn't do something that was gonna like really mar my reputation or be a major character flaw. I mean, you look at my buddy Shane Gillis, like, he made some jokes about Asian people, and now everyone thinks of him as being this racist guy. I know Shane, he's not a racist.
And he's
But, like,
one of the best comedians out there right now.
yeah, it's like
Like,
that's a way shittier cross to have to bear, that the media like cooked up,
right.
than being the guy who mistakenly wrote about a dead girl.
And now I want to go into a lighter topic now, talking about your podcast and how much success you've had from it. From this negative story, you've turned it into a positive. Now, Oops, the podcast, it's big. You've had it. I was interviewed for it. I know how much it means to you, but the concept of it, how has that reacted towards your guests that you've had? Like my favorite guests you've had is, Mike Cannon, who's hilarious, Shane Gillis,
Yeah.
who's Got to Eat Girls, Andrew Schultz, even. So how did they react towards the topic and like the?
Yeah, everyone's been like, pretty on board about it. I think sometimes our guests are more prepared to tell their mistakes than other times. But in general, everyone has fuck ups and mistakes that they're pretty open about. So it's fun. And we don't just focus on the mistakes. We talk to people about kind of everything. And but it is an outlet for people to reflect on times where they had to like come through a shitty moment, what they learned from it. And I think that resonates with a lot of people.
With your act, you have done live performances with the Girls Gotta Eat. I've watched those on, I think it was on social media or what have you. I've always wanted to go. I was actually planning on going to one of your shows, and unfortunately, something came up. I couldn't go. But how do you like working with those girls? And you've worked with them a lot over the past.
They're the best. They're two of my closest friends in the world now. Ashley is my partner, and we produce a monthly show together at the Stand called Stay Humble, and we have a lot of fun doing that. And they're just, I think they're so unique in that they, they built their own podcast, and we're just a different voice. They weren't pointlessly kind of shooting the shit to hear their own voices. They had structure, and they had intelligence, and they're very well spoken, and they had great stories, very good chemistry, and they exploded. I mean, their podcast is one of the most popular podcasts in the country. And I just think, like, as people too, that they are very genuine, wonderful people, and that who they are on their podcast is who they are in real life. And it's not just, putting on a show. So I adore them, and I look up to them, and I'm very grateful that they've accepted me into their friendships, and let me kind of ride their coattails a little bit.
You used your piano a lot in your act.
I do, yeah.
When did you realize like that's a way to kind of separate myself from the rest? Because I personally only know another person that uses music, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that does music in their act, and it's Adam Sandler with his guitar, and he sings.
Yeah, I mean, there are a good amount of comedians that use music. Bo Burnham, famously, Craig Robinson, all of his stand-up is at his keyboard. Dimitri Martin plays the guitar. There are a number of comedians that famously throughout time have used music, but I think that
he's ready to be the banjo.
Yes, exactly. I think that my manager was the one who told me that as a straight white male, like, it was going to be tough in stand up to actually make a name for myself doing this, and that the songs were kind of unique and a fun way to actually make a name for myself. So we sort of dove more into that, and I come in and out of it. I enjoy playing. I don't always enjoy writing songs, but I've got a new one that I'm going to launch in a couple days that I think is kind of funny, and people can look out for that on my Instagram.
I thought the one that it might have been, I don't know, a couple months ago, about you were playing, I think at Gotham. I think it was the one where it was having sex with your girlfriend, and where
You're just coming everywhere.
Right. Yeah. I thought that was super clever. Now with those, I'm sure you're writing, and the writing has to be perfect with those. And how much time do you take to write those songs out? Does it take a while, or is it usually kind of very?
It can take a while. Yeah, that one I wrote on an airplane. And the funny thing was that I had my laptop open, and this woman was like waking up in and out of a nap, and I was very conscious of the fact that I didn't want her to see the lyrics. So whenever she'd wake up, I'd kind of push the screen over, so she couldn't see it. But some of them are harder than others, and then some of them I can just bang out in like a night. But there's always tweaking. I think that with songs and writing lyrics, it's just like writing stand-up jokes. I mean, I'll perform it once or twice and then realize, like, oh, if I tweak that lyric, that'll be a bigger laugh, or there should be a laugh here. And that's it's the same process, frankly.
I didn't even mention this before, but one of my favorite sketches you did when you were at Barstool was the one with Bill Burr, when you did the video where you said, like, hey guys, some of your coworkers, like, hey, can I show you some of my work? And then Bill walks over, and you get kind of nervous, and then you say the jokes, and they're all his.
Yeah.
Must have been, was it nervous kind of asking Bill, like, hey, you think you can do this with me?
Well, by that point, I'd been at the company for a while, and I'd already shot sketches with Ryan Lochte and Ice Cube and uh, all these other famous people.
I
So
just think it's different because he's like a comedy god, you know?
yeah, he is my idol in comedy, and so that was really fun for me. And I kind of just pitched him the sketch as he was coming out of like Pardon My Take or whatever, and he was like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." And I was like, "Really?" It's like couldn't believe he wanted to do something. So we did it, and I thought it was pretty funny. And it's like it's one of those things where I think that sketch is funnier if you're a fan of Bill Burr. On its surface, it's like there are so many ways that I've watched that sketch back and thought like, oh, this would have been funnier if I'd done this or
That always happens, though, you know? Like, you in the
yeah.
moment,
Well,
you
we
know
improvised the whole thing too. Like
that's awesome.
we had to. So I was like, I'm just gonna tell your jokes and you're gonna react and do it however you feel fit. And he was like, okay, sounds good. And you know, and then I was like, oh shit, how well do I know Bill Burr's jokes? Which, fortunately I've been such a fan for so many years. And I think I did jokes that were from like 3 separate specials he did or
Right.
something. So that was cool.
Yeah, that must have been incredible.
Yeah.
When it comes to stand-up, I've always wanted to ask a comedian this. Tell me the story of the worst time you bombed, and where was it?
Yeah. For me, it would be, I think it would be when I did the reelection fundraiser for the sheriff of Bergen County
Oh, man.
in New Jersey, and it was like 500 people. It was 250 police officers and their wives in
Oh,
this
shit.
huge banquet hall in New Jersey, and most of these people didn't know that there was even a stand-up show that was going to happen. And so I like went up to the podium as everyone was eating their dinner, and all the tables were round tables, which meant that half the audience was facing away from me. And so uh I started performing, and like people were like, what's happening? And then they like looked up and they didn't know who I was, and they were like, oh, fuck that. And they just went back to talking to each other. And so I just did like 12 minutes of stand up as though I was just another person in the room talking
Oh, my God.
to nobody, except I was on a microphone. And it was like, so it's not entirely my fault, but it was definitely the worst hell gig I ever had.
And I'm sure they didn't pay you a lot for it either.
I don't even think I was paid. I think I did that as a favor to a club owner in New York City who was friends with the sheriff.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it was
Just like
bad.
walking off, you're like, all right, I'm just going to go.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. I just got in a car and went back into the city. It was fucking hell.
Now, with your podcast, you've interviewed a lot of comedians. You kind of have like this wall of shame concept, and you kind of put the faces on there. Is there anybody you like? Who's your like number one white whale guest to put on that?
Yeah, good question. I think for me it's Monica Lewinsky or
Oh
OJ
my
Simpson.
God. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, those two. Monica I would really like to talk to cuz she's kind of an inspirational figure now. Like she does TED Talks and she's really got a pretty cool brand for herself. And
Extremely vocal about.
yeah,
I mean,
and
she's almost willing to do
I
anything.
think she's just somebody who would be very impressive to talk to her and hear what she kind of learned from kind of becoming this like decade long punchline, and how do you get taken seriously after that. And she was seen as being this homewrecker of the Clinton family, and uh just I don't know, I admire her a lot, and I'd be very interested to hear what she has to say.
What about a comedian side of it, not just a like a like a
Yeah, well, Bill Burr actually told me that he would love to do it sometime, so that'd be fun to get him. And aside from that, Pete Davidson was somebody that we were going to try to get on. Julio knows him pretty well. We'll see if that happens. But we've gotten a lot of of the comedians that I look up to and admire in New York City. So that's been kind of fun. And yeah, I don't know. Pretty happy with who we've got so far.
Yeah, the guests are huge. You got, I mean, Schultz and Shane Gillis are huge names. And I love Mike Cannon as well. I know you just had him on via
Yeah.
via Zoom.
Yeah.
How have you guys been dealing with the coronavirus and quarantine and trying to do all your work? And as a comedian, you can't do any shows.
Yeah, that's the toughest part, is not being able to perform stand up, and there's really no substitute for it. I mean, a couple of my friends have tried to put together these like Instagram live shows, and it's just, I mean, it's not the same. So
Yeah, because you're doing the comedy and there's 30 people watching on, but there's no interaction with the crowd.
right. So I don't know. I think that missing stand up, and I was getting up like 7 or 8 times a week, so I missed that tremendously. But as far as our podcast goes, it's fine that we're doing it this way, but what I do miss is that the lack of daily experience has made it harder for us to come up with material that people find compelling. So just keeping it interesting is a little bit harder, I think.
Is this quarantine giving you some material to work with? Like, are you figure out?
It was initially, but it's like everyone's telling kind of the same fucking stories. And so it's hard to keep it fresh. And I'm very aware of not sounding like everybody else. That's the problem too.
All right, my last question is just marry, fuck, kill. Real simple. Bill Burr, Jerry Seinfeld, or Dave Chappelle?
Oh, goodness. All right.
And why?
Yeah. I think I would. I think I would. I think I would marry Seinfeld because he's worth, $1 billion, and is also seems to be like the most kind of level-headed family man. And also I could learn a lot from him in a marriage.
Absolutely.
I guess I would fuck. I hate to do it, but I would probably fuck Chappelle because I think Chappelle is the greatest to ever do it. And then that means I'm sadly killing my man Bill Burr, even though he's my idol. So that's hard to believe, but that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Well, I forgot to ask one more question. With SNL, is that something you ever thought about doing at all since through your comedy career and your podcast? Is that if there's ever an opportunity, your agent tells you, "Hey, look, they're looking for a new cast."
I don't think that I would get SNL for the same reason that Shane didn't get it at this point.
That sucks.
I don't think that I'm probably too toxic based on, the work I did at Barstool and the way that I was fired. So I'm not, I'm not sad about that though. I think SNL is great, and it used to be a huge dream of mine, but the longer I've been in this business, the more I've realized that there's so much success to be had, without hitting the most, obvious checkpoints. So, I'm pretty at peace with where things are, and I've got some ideas and goals for what I want. And if Lorne Michaels comes a calling, great, I'll take that call happily. But if not, I'm not losing sleep over it.
Well, Francis, I would say tell us your dates, but you can't since we don't know when the fuck we're gonna be back out of it.
Yeah, I have a ton of dates that got postponed, and so I don't have new dates for those yet. But I definitely know I think I'll be in Chicago in July, and in some, definitely I'll be at Moon Tower in September and stuff like that. So that's fun.
All right, Francis, I really appreciate you coming on. I look
Taylor,
up to
my
you.
pleasure, dude. Thanks for having me.
One of your guys I see on social media, and I think you were supposed to come out in Long Island at some point. So
yeah, it's supposed to play Governors. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I will try my best to get there if we are ever out of this quarantine. So
hell yeah,
really
appreciate it, buddy. Sounds good. Talk to you soon. Thanks.
Thanks, man.